Hello everyone and welcome back to the second Flask tutorial. So what we're going to be doing in this video is actually talking about templates and how we can use our own HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all of that with this kind of Python backend. Before I get into that though, I just want to quickly show you something I forgot in the last video, which is how we can redirect to specific functions that take arguments. So you might have noticed that, if I want to redirect, say, from this admin page to maybe a hello page that maybe says hello admin or something like that when they type /admin. Well, how can I do that? Because if I just put in, user like this, well, this isn't going to give me a proper, path to this user function. It's not going to give me an argument for name, and it's not going to know what to print name for, and therefore we're going to get an error. So how can I actually pass through a value for name when I'm redirecting to a specific URL, which is what you're going to actually want to do a lot of times. So to do that, it's pretty straightforward. You're just going to type the name of the parameter and then equals, and then whatever you want to pass through. So in this case, I'll just type admin like that with an exclamation point. And this means now what's going to actually happen is when I go to the /admin page, it's going to return the URL for user, and it's going to pass through the argument admin, which means it will print, hello admin, exclamation point, exclamation point. So to prove to you that I'm not making this up, I will run this. Let's open up our command prompt, or here we go. And if I actually go to not test, I go to admin, then we get hello admin, exclamation point, exclamation point. And you can see in the console here, we went to admin and then we were redirected to that actual page where we had, admin, exclamation point, and that showed that for us. Okay, so that's all for that. Just want to show you guys quickly that, you can do that. And also another point here, just if you are wondering, if you could put another / after the URL like this, what this actually allows you to do is access the page by having, so let's actually change this now, by having a / afterwards or by having no /. So right now, if I put another /, you can see we're actually running into an error here, like nothing's loading up because there's no root for admin /. But once I add this / here, this will actually allow me to access the page with either a / after or no /. Just, an interesting thing in case you guys wanted to know that, or in case you're wondering why your thing is not working. Okay, so let me just close this for now, like that. And now let's actually start doing some templates. So what I'm going to do is actually just remove some of this for now. And you know what? We'll just leave the home page because this is going to be pretty straightforward. And I'm going to import something called render_template. Now what this function is going to allow us to do is actually grab a HTML file and render that as our web page. So right now we've just been rendering inline, HTML where I just write h1. Someone noticed that I forgot the /h1 on the tag. There you go. I added it for you guys. But anyways, how do we do that? So what we need to do is start by actually creating an HTML file, and we need to put that in a specific directory. So here I'm going to open up my Windows Explorer, and you can see this is where I have my 2 Python files for this specific tutorial for this Flask website. So what I'm going to do is just create a new folder, and I'm going to call it templates. Now it's very important that you name your folder templates and that it's sitting beside or in the same directory as your Python script that's running the website. So whatever that Python script is that you're writing that has Flask in it, that's what you need. So I'm going to make a folder called templates and just hit enter there. And now I'm going to create a new HTML file. I can call it whatever I want, and I'm going to put it inside of that folder. So to do that from subline, at least here, I'm just going to save a new file. I'm going to go inside templates, and I'm just going to call mine index.html, which usually stands for, the first HTML file we're going to use, the home page, whatever it is, but you can call this whatever you want. But make sure you have .html. So I add .html now, and now I'm just going to create a very basic HTML file. I'll go through this kind of quickly. I'm not really going to explain what, how HTML works because it's a fairly basic language. And then we will actually just render that template and then see what this looks like. So for the head, I'll just add, a basic title tag here that just says homepage like this. And then for my body, so let's add body tags like this. What I'll do is just add a paragraph tag that just says, hello, and then we'll add a h1 tag here that just says homepage or something like that. Okay, wonderful. So this is my basic HTML file. I could add this doc type HTML because some people like to do that. I honestly don't know if this makes a difference or not when I do this, but we'll add doc type HTML. Okay, so now we have our index.html file. So how can we actually render this HTML file that I've just created and show that? Well, to do that is very easy. All we're going to do is return from this home function, render, oops, if I could spell render correctly. And then here, we're just going to put the name of that HTML file. So in this case, it's going to be home.html or index.html, whatever I called it. So let's do that. And now if I run this, we can actually load that file. So let me show you. Let's rerun this here. Give this a second. Go back. Instead of going to /admin, we're just going to go to / for the home page. And you can see that now we actually get that HTML that we've created, and we have homepage, hello, showing up on the screen. Wonderful, awesome. That's how you render HTML templates. But now I'm going to show you a lot more cool things that we can do with this that actually make it pretty useful. So first of all, what if I want to show, dynamic information on the screen? So like I had before, if I add, for example, and say a name tag here to the home page, let's do that. And I want to display the user's name on the home page. How do I go about doing that? Well, what I can actually do is pass information from here, the back end of Flask, to the front end in my HTML template. Now, the way that I do that is inside my HTML template, I can use a few different kind of expressions or statements that just work with Flask. Now, the first one is by doing 2 sets of curly braces like this. Now, whenever I do this, what this is actually going to allow me to do is type any variable or any information that's going to be passed into this template. So for example, I could type something like content. Now, I know this kind of seems like random, like what is this? It doesn't make sense. I'm going to show you guys in a second. But when I define content inside this HTML template like this, what I can actually do to pass a value that will replace content is go in here to my render HTML function and type content equals, and then in this case, whatever I want to show up. So here, maybe I want it to be the name that the user typed in here. So what's essentially happening is we're going to render this index.html file, and we're going to pass it, pass the variable content, the value of name. So what's going to happen is this content will be replaced with whatever name that we had passed in there, and then it's actually going to show us the name. So let me show you this to prove that I'm not making this up. So let's run this, and let's go now, /home. What was the issue here? All right, so I realized that I didn't save that file, so I'm just going to rerun this and show this to you guys one more time because this should actually be working. So you can see I have /test up here, and when I do that, we get homepage, and then it shows test. Now, if I do something like test123, we get test123 showing up, and this works just like it did before, in that we get the argument passed through the parameter, but now we're just going to pass it one more time into this HTML template. Now we can also pass multiple values as well. So, if we go P and we'll add another P tag, and now instead of content, maybe we'll just do like, actually, let's not call it random. I'm just going to call it R because why not? And then what I can do is say R equals, 2, something like that. And now if I rerun this, we should get the same thing working. So apparently I keep forgetting to save my files, but anyways, I just reran it and now it's working. You can see we get test123 and then 2, and obviously that's because we just passed in the value, R equals 2 in here. Now you might be asking the question, well, what if I want to pass, a ton of different values? I don't have variable names. I want to pass a list. I want to do something like that. Well, I'm going to show you exactly how we can do that now. So what's actually really nice about this, and you guys are going to be like, this is pretty cool if you haven't seen this before in Django, is inside these templates, we can actually write Python code. And we can do that using what we call the, I think it's like the expression statement or something like that. I don't know what the actual name of it is. But essentially by doing a curly brace, %, and then %, and a closing curly bracket, we can actually write like somewhat native Python code within our HTML to do specific things. So for example, I can actually write a for loop in here. I could do, for underscore in this case, we could say range and maybe, 0, 10. And if I do something like this, and then I end my for loop by doing %, end for, this is just kind of the basic syntax of it. Inside here, I could actually put some HTML code, and I could do P, and I could just say, hello 10 times if I wanted to do that. So actually, let's just make range 10. We don't need that 0. But this is kind of how this works. Whenever you want to declare an expression, what you can do is use this % and then write some Python code, close it with the % and the curly bracket, do whatever you want inside this for loop, and then end the for loop by just doing end for. And the same